Today we continue our journey with Nehemiah. The walls of Jerusalem have been rebuilt. The law of Moses has been read. Revival has broken out among the people. They've confessed their sins and the sins of their ancestors. They've been confronted by the faithfulness of God in the face of their unfaithfulness. What now? Action. If spiritual renewal was to be real, there had to be action, and there has to be action for us. At the end of chapter 9, the leaders committed to following the law of the Lord, having been convicted of their own unfaithfulness to God. He says this: in view of all this, we are making a binding agreement, putting it in writing, and our leaders, our Levites, and our priests are affixing their seals to it. This is the language of contract, binding contract. Then the rest of the people, and the chapter 10 goes on in this way, bind themselves with a curse and an oath to follow the law of God, to obey carefully all the commands, regulations, and the decrees of the Lord our God. This is indeed a new commitment, total commitment, binding, following, obeying. And it's by the whole people of God, not just the leaders. Nehemiah came to Jerusalem with a mission to rebuild the walls and then rebuild the people, to see a renewal and a rediscovery of their identity as belonging to God. How was this to be achieved? In the rest of that reading that Angela brought to us this morning, I want to suggest that there were three areas of specific commitment identified. And I believe these to be areas of relevance, not only then, but now to us as we seek to rebuild the life of the church in the coming months and years as we hopefully move out of this time of pandemic. So first, there is a commitment to holiness. Commitment to holiness. God is holy. God calls his people to be holy. Holiness is to live according to different standards and ethical values compared to the world around us. To be holy, the starting point is God and a calling to reflect God. It's about a servant attitude. It's about humility. Holiness is only possible where God is the prime influence. Hence, in Nehemiah, the call to separate from the other influences which had pulled the people of Israel away from God, namely the religious practices and the way of life of the neighbouring peoples. So the new commitment to holiness had an impact and involved the family unit. It says this: we promise not to give our daughters in marriage to the peoples around us, or to take their daughters for our sons. Foreign marriages arranged to further a family's wealth and social standing had long been a back door for foreign gods. Now, under the new commitment, looking forward, they were no longer to happen. A little bit later in that passage that Angela read, it says this: we will bring the firstborn of our sons to the house of our God. The dedication to the service of God of eldest sons was a practice to be renewed. Now you're probably thinking, this all seems obscure, outdated, and irrelevant. What on earth has this got to do with me? Well, we need to allow the primary influence in our families and for our children. We need that primary influence to be God. There's going to be all kinds of other influences. And of course, that is hard where partners may not be Christians. That's hard in a world where there are so many different influences. Yes, it does involve difficult or creative decisions. We need to show that worship, prayer, service, growing in faith matters to us and isn't just an optional extra if we've any energy left at the end of the day. And this is for the sake of our children in our congregation as well as for ourselves. Worshipping together on a Sunday does matter. Meeting together as Christians matters. It's about the support that we can offer to one another. We are in this together, as we discovered earlier in this series of talks about Nehemiah. We need one another. Second way that holiness was to be seen, not just in family life, but seen in how people were to conduct themselves in work and business. When the neighbouring peoples bringing merchandise or grain to sell on the Sabbath, we will not buy from them on the Sabbath or on any holy day. That was the commitment that the people of Nehemiah's day undertook. Don't do business on the Sabbath, even when those non-Jewish neighbours wanted to trade with you. That was the message. That was the commitment. Now, although this was very specific to Nehemiah's people, again, and for us, we live in a very different context. We live where work on Sunday is normal and shops open. And of course, Sunday isn't the Sabbath that Nehemiah was speaking about. So what, if anything, does this commitment mean for us in terms of work and business? Can we be holy in them? Here's how. Honesty, integrity, hard work, courtesy, a servant-hearted approach, treating people fairly. They're all aspects of our working lives that all of us should be committed to. Sadly, we know that in our world, that is not always the case. These are ways that holiness can be put into practice in the way that we work and we do business. But also, how much time do we spend in praying about our work and praying about the world of business and economics? How much of our worship gives time to considering our working lives? There's a challenge. How do we as Christians, as the church, challenge injustice and wrong practice in business? When we talk about holiness. Quite often we think slightly negatively about it. We think of it being something that is about being proud and superior. It's not. It is, in fact, about being very practical in the way we conduct ourselves. And we need to ask ourselves if there's anything that we need to keep apart from. We need to think about praying for the marriages of our children and grandchildren and the people that they're going to marry at some point in the future. Be holy, says God to you and to me. Be holy. So commitment to holiness is the first commitment. The second is commitment to social justice and creation. This new commitment that was being asked of the people of Nehemiah's day sees action on social justice and care for creation. Here's a very simple statement that's made in that passage. Every seventh year, we will forego working the land and will cancel all debts. Giving the land a rest was vital to maintain its fertility. Yet the temptation was to continue to use it, to exploit it, to grow things in it, and to wear down the nutrients in the soil. But also the exploitation of the poor was a temptation. Those in debt was one of the issues Nehemiah had already had to deal with before, because it was happening. Here, now, at this moment, there was a commitment made going forward that the poor would not be in a permanent grip of debt. Because periodically, every 7 years, all debts would be written off. People will be lifted out of poverty. Now, not many of us have a direct link to working the land. So what should our commitment be? Well, I believe that it is a commitment to caring for our environment and caring for our land and caring for this planet on which we live. Because that's at the heart of what letting the land have a rest was about. That's the signal for us. And also it's a commitment to caring about social justice for the poor. For the poor in this country, there are many who are poor. And we know from that campaign led by Marcus Rashford that he has a tremendous heart for the poor in this country. But there are poor right across our world. So we need to ask ourselves today, what one new thing can I do? Can we do to be part of the green environmental revolution? And what one step can we take to bring relief to the poor? Now, we haven't got time to explore all the possibilities, but here is something that you can do following this service. For ideas about being green and offering aid to the poor, check out the Tear Fund website. Back in Lent, we were doing a course that was inspired by Tear Fund. It was Say Yes to Life. Look at that section of the Tear Fund website about the environmental agenda and what can be done. But also look at the Tear Fund website about what can be done to help the poor. And if you want other ideas, And you can get this on the Tear Fund website. This week, it was Toilet Twinning Day. Why not get involved in that initiative? Find out more on the Tear Fund site. Lastly, commitment to worship and ministry. Much of what that passage that Angela read to us was about was a new commitment, expressing ways in which to give to the temple, to worship, and to support the priests in their ministry. All the people, not just some, all the people committed to give of their produce, grain, wine, olive oil, wood for this work. All committed to give regularly and to give proportionately. Now, although our context is different, we're not an agrarian society. The support of worship, the support of the place of worship, our church, and the support of ongoing ministry is still a commitment that we can take on. The principles of regularity and proportionality remain the same. And I want to say a big thank you to those who, through the difficult days that we've been experiencing, have continued to give to support the work of the church here at St. Anne's. Even though we've not been enjoying church as we always have in the past, church is still continue to happen, and it's because of that support that has continued to flow. So a very big thank you to those who really have made that commitment. But commitment to worship and ministry needs to be continuing to give financially and to give ourselves. It's not an either or, it's a both and. So ask yourself what your personal commitment and involvement in worship is. Talk to me if you want to do more, or if you have ideas. And also ask yourself, what part am I playing in the life of the church? And is God calling me to do more or to do something different? Think about doing some training. The lay ministry course is open for applications. You can now do a module without necessarily having to become an authorised local minister. Think about it. Talk to me, talk to someone else in leadership in the church. So, a new commitment to holiness, commitment to creation, commitment to social justice, commitment to worship, commitment to ministry. It's all for us. It's not an optional extra for the few. Make that commitment yours today and act